So far, we've been able to address a lot of different things revolving around Pikmin 4. Before the demo, we were trying to guess what Leafling Olimar was, trying to figure out the timeline. We've talked about if Pikmin 4 is a reboot, and even what Louie might be doing in this game. Despite all that, there is one major new character we have neglected to talk about. Olimar's loyal dog Moss, and while looking into it, I may have actually come across something pretty cool. Hello everyone, you're watching Variety Television and welcome to another Pikmin 4 theory video. Before we get started, I'd like to say thank you so much for your support by watching this video, but if you would be so kind as to consider subscribing, as I'm trying to grow this channel and community, and most of the people who watch my videos are not actually subscribed. Sorry for taking up so much time with that. Let's get on with the video. In the very beginning intro cartoon of the Pikmin 4 demo, Olimar introduces us to Moss and explains how he found her, hungry and all on her own. He feeds her and builds a bond with her, and she quickly becomes a very loyal companion and helper to Olimar. After meeting Olimar, it seems Moss opens up quite a bit, becoming somewhat of a second captain alongside Olimar, but even more so because she could attack enemies and even carry heavy objects like Pikmin. Here's the first interesting bit of information that we can deduce without looking very deep. Moss looks a lot like Ochi, with the main and pretty much only difference being Moss's leaf tail. The other thing to point out is that Olimar relates Moss's ability to survive on PNF4 to her leaf, while we see that Ochi is able to survive on PNF404 just fine as well, and he has no leaf. Without giving too much away before I get to the point, I think Moss is most likely the very first leafling type creature we actually meet in Pikmin 4, and I think there's a hidden character that we've been totally blind to this entire time. There's a little more evidence than the obvious leaf tail on Moss, so let's discuss this even further. Remember when I mentioned Olimar meeting Moss for the first time? She was laying all alone and she was very hungry. Olimar gave her a bone as a treat and she quickly bonded to him. But we see later that Moss is actually very strong and is able to both take down large enemies and carry heavy objects. Why is it that she was so hungry if she was so strong? If she eats bones, couldn't she very easily hunt down some food? Well, consider Ochi for a moment. When we first add Ochi to our team, he isn't fully grown and isn't able to do much. Albeit Moss is much larger, even after Ochi grows up, he isn't able to do much. It isn't until we take Ochi out on expeditions and through caves that Ochi's pup drive increases. This pup drive is what's used to make Ochi be able to carry more weight, deal more damage, and much more. Moss probably works the same way, and before meeting Olimar had no one showing her the ropes, and therefore no pup drive. We see through small descriptions at the start of each cave that Olimar has already been through it with Moss, so we know he is training her as he goes, and this explains why we see her so much stronger by the time we play as Olimar towards the end of his journey. That's neat and all, but let's start discussing the leafling aspect of Moss a bit more. As I stated before, Moss looks a lot like Ochi, but she's green and blue instead of yellow and orange. She also has a leaf tail, unlike Ochi. The leaf tail could be an obvious sign that Moss is a leafling, although we can't ignore that some creatures, like the Pikmin, have these leaves naturally. It's the extreme similarity to Ochi and specific coloration that makes me think Moss is a leafling. We know that leaflings appear in very specific colors, and so far those colors have been red, purple, and pink, all of which directly line up with Pikmin colors. Moss is two-toned, being both green and blue. Assuming Moss is two-toned because of the type of dog she is and that those are not natural colors, her colors also match up with known Pikmin types. Green for glow Pikmin, although Moss is a darker shade, and blue for, well, blue Pikmin. Throw in the leaf tail and I think we start to see the makings of a leafling. There's two problems though. Leaflings tend to be people, and we haven't seen any other animal leaflings to confirm that this is even a possibility. If it is possible, then we run into our second problem. Leaflings also tend to be made of a living thing, and as far as we know, no dogs have been to the planet before. That's where the hidden character I mentioned at the start of this thing comes into play. Here's my really big idea. In my opinion, based on what we know about Moss's appearance and behavior, she's a dog. It seems like she is the exact same kind of dog as Ochi as well. If she is a dog, and these dogs are native to Hecate, how did she get here? Somebody has to have brought her here, right? And clearly Olimar doesn't know her, and he is seemingly the first non-human person to ever be on PNF 404, but the fact that Moss is here at all seems to point away from that idea entirely. I think another person who isn't Olimar crashed down on PNF 404 along with their pet puppy. They were clearly not as fortunate as Olimar, as whatever happened to them prevented them from sending out an SOS. My honest guess is that Moss wasn't fully grown when they crashed, and whoever this was couldn't handle the Pikmin efficiently enough to save themselves. When these two are about to die, they become leaflings instead. Maybe they pass out and the Pikmin carry them on instinct, or maybe this other captain considered the option of having a leaf just like Olimar did, and they gave themselves into the onion as a last-ditch effort for survival. We see with the pink leafling that some people seem to totally lose themselves and become obsessed with endless Dandori training. I bet that first captain lost themselves in a similar fashion and in turn got separated from Moss. When Olimar finds her, she's already a leafling and has reached full size, but hasn't had the training she needed to keep herself alive. This is where Olimar steps in and takes Moss into his care. Let me add this little nugget onto the theory as well. If Moss reached the planet with a different captain before Olimar, I bet she is the one who dragged Olimar into the onion, as she would have already known this could keep him alive. Yes, she's a dog, but the dogs from Hecate can function almost as a second captain once they're properly trained, and I would bet that Moss is intelligent enough to handle that herself if Olimar's life support failed. Flash forward a couple months to when the rescue corps touches down. Whoever crashed down with Moss is still out there somewhere, and they've been lost physically and mentally for a long time. I have a feeling we will see them again as some crazy and wild leafling creature, and probably not a friend either, making the big twist that Olimar was never the first person to crash land on PNF 404. He was just the first one lucky enough to write about it before his mind slipped away. Let me know what you guys think about this idea down in the comments below. Do you think it holds any water? If not, how do you think Moss got on this planet? What do you think she is? And what do you think her relationship is to Ochi, as they do seem very similar to each other? Thanks so much for watching to this point. If you enjoyed it, consider subscribing or leaving a like. That's all I have for this one, but please stay tuned. Variety Television will be right back.